Hey everyone, this is Louis7 and today I have a rare video on World of Warcraft, and for people unfamiliar with my channel, I primarily focus on the Lord of the Rings Online, even though WoW is one of my most played games, and it's a game that used to excite me a lot with every update and every content patch, and I also loved running end-game content. I love leveling, I even did some PvP, and I have always liked gold making, and when I played more frequently I would have like an alt armory to progress the character of every class that I would play to the level cap, and I think you all get the point. Basically, I did all sorts of standard WoW activities on a fairly casual level overall. And I honestly would love to make videos on the game, but over time, especially in the past few years, World of Warcraft just has not been exciting to me very much. And I thought it would be interesting to explore this topic and share my experience with you all on why I think that is, and just to fairly point out, there are moments that are definitely still a bit exciting, such as the Shadowlands level squish, but overall it's just not that exciting to me, at least compared to what it used to be. And as a preview of sorts, World of Warcraft in 2021 is almost like a foreign game compared to what it used to be like. There's just a lot of accumulating changes that keep adding up over time, and I think this is especially true if we compare to like classic WoW or even the Wrath of the Lich King era up to then, which, by the way, just to point out, the Lich King, that is going to be my favorite expansion in the game for reference as we go throughout this. But for the rest of this video, I want to talk about the latest content in WoW, the core gameplay and the classes, then the game systems and some features, and lastly I will cover content and the story. But then at the end of the video, I want to end on a section on a brighter note with things that still do excite me in WoW. And to begin with, the very first reason on why I don't feel as excited about World of Warcraft is the latest content, as in the expansions and all the updates. I just haven't thought they are very fun to play, at least for me, and it's pretty simple because I'm not having much fun actually playing through these. I can't really get excited about anything going on with them or anything coming up. And this really started in Legion, which to me sort of killed class fantasy, I want to say. It emphasized spec fantasy instead, and like when I was playing my mage, I didn't feel like I was playing a mage specialized into fire, for example. I felt like I was playing a fire mage. And it honestly may just sound like semantics, but it was true for a lot of the classes and specs and characters I played. And this actually segues into the first big topic that I want to cover, which is on gameplay and classes. I just broadly think the core gameplay with the classes is not as fun as it used to be for me. And this is a very key part of the game, or any game for that matter with MMOs. It's something with WoW that made me just really enjoy it all the time. But I feel like, since especially thinking like Warlords of Draenor, that almost every class and every spec has personally for me gotten less fun. It's just been more boring to me to play all of these classes, and I think in general the classes have lost pieces of them that I used to like with them. And I think this is especially true when thinking about the flavor of classes, flavor of specs, and perhaps most importantly actually the flavor of abilities and spells and that type of stuff. And to be fair, there are definitely some things that have improved, but overall I feel like there are just a lot of negative changes that have outweighed any positive additions for me personally and what I have liked about WoW. So there are many examples I could go through with this. I could go on and on, but I want to touch on some important ones for this video. And first off, my main character is a mage, and I admit this is actually a slightly poor example because I can still overall enjoy the overall gameplay on the mage, which is good, but there are elements of it that make it less exciting than it used to be. For example, I miss using Blast Wave as the old AoE actual damage skill that it used to be, and I miss Flame Strike just dealing damage over time. I miss Blizzard being a channel skill, that was fun, and all those type of things just add together and contribute to me not enjoying mage as much as I used to overall. And on the flavor side of things as well with the mage, I miss like fire spells actually burning enemies for damage over time end game, and like Fireball would actually have a damage over time component to it, and even Pyroblast did the same as well. I miss those type of things with that as well. But with the Fire Mage, I do want to give a counter example, and when you don't crit for a while with Fireball, you build the stacking crit chance increase as a measure to basically prevent you from going too long without getting a crit and getting an exciting instant pyroblast. So I do like that, but The point here is this situation is just how I feel with every class. There are things that I miss that used to be fun and are no longer a part of the class, and whatever positive additions they actually have, they just usually don't excite me overall. One more example I have is the Rogue, which I actually didn't play much of for the first few expansions with WoW, but I made a new one in Warlords of Draenor when I decided to finally progress on this class that I basically rarely played before. And I leveled the new Rogue during this expansion, and I thought Assassination and Subtlety especially, those two specs were very fun to play while leveling and questing and doing dungeons and the such. And this is actually especially true with Assassination, and right now I feel like both specs are different enough compared to what they were back then that, going back to what I said earlier in this video, I don't even feel like I'm playing these same class, same characters, or even same specs anymore. I know Subtlety has changed a ton, and Assassination just, to me, isn't as fun as it used to be. But moving on from that, at the end here I do want to give a counterexample of sorts, and that is actually with Enhancement Shaman. So compared to maybe Wrath of Lich King or Burning Crusade, I can't honestly say if I prefer the way Enhancement Shaman is now versus back then, but what I can say is I enjoy the current iteration of Enhancement Shaman a lot more, thinking towards Legion and Battle for Azeroth, where I didn't really like Maelstrom as a resource. I still don't like that for Elemental Shamans for my preference, but I am actually happy with the Enhancement Shaman overall right now. But overall, there are just so many examples again that I could go over here, and I don't want to spend way too much time on it with the video. I just want to really illustrate my point and vent a little bit with the classes, especially like the Fire Mage there and Rogue there. But I know there are going to be probably tons of players who enjoy newer versions and all the updates to some classes and specs, but for me personally, there's just nothing that has been really super exciting for me to want to play WoW just to play that class or spec like I used to, and that's been true for the past couple of years especially. Continuing on with the classes and gameplay, I also think broadly the sound effects actually for classes have somehow all gotten worse, for like the abilities and spells I mean. And this one is a bit odd, but to me everything just sounds so flat in the game now. And for example, arcane spells just don't actually even sound magical to me, and weapon hits and that type of stuff sounds way worse than even whacking something with like a paper weapon. It seems like it's kind of crazy to me. And I don't think the sound quality is necessarily too bad, but for me it's just these sound effects somehow have gotten like way worse with each update, it seems like, that they receive, and I don't really know. This is just an odd one for me, and in my experience these sound effects don't have much depth or punch to them really that adds excitement to what I am actually doing in the game with these sounds, and I think this can actually have a significant impact on my enjoyability when I am playing the game. But that one was a little bit shorter and simpler overall, and at the end of this gameplay section, I will say the overall gameplay of WoW, the gameplay style I think still feels good and polished and is smooth overall. And it may sound weird, but the WoW gameplay still feeling so good actually makes this more frustrating with all the reasons I've listed here, because I do love the gameplay in WoW, and it's one of the big reasons I would always come back to WoW after like taking breaks or playing other games, which has not been too much the case lately. But I think you all have listened to me ramble enough about that with the gameplay, and next up let's talk about some systems and features in WoW. And this is actually going to be a controversial thing I think to start here, but I personally am not a fan of the Mythic Plus system. I think it is great for people who actually do enjoy that content, but it's also going to be one of those things that does not excite me. Now, I do actually like the idea of mythic instances and challenging content, but I don't know, I just haven't ever been able to actually get into Mythic Plus and going through that system with the many levels of difficulty. It seems kind of repetitious and grindy to me, but at the same time I actually do wonder how that's any different than like heroics or regular mythic instances, which I actually do enjoy. But I will say I have heard from other players that Mythic Plus actually focuses on trash fights rather than boss fights, which to me is the opposite of what I'm looking for out of dungeons. Usually trash fights I want to get through and kind of plow through that as a fun thing, but then have more focus on difficulty in the boss fights, which from what I've heard is not what Mythic Plus is like. But I think there is actually a bigger issue here perhaps with me, and that is that I have not had a good guild in WoW for a very long time, and I do think that makes it harder to enjoy the game and get excited about it. It's kind of like, what is an MMO without actually a group of players to experience it with? And with Lochero, again my main game, I am fortunate to have a great kinship that I love being around, and I think whenever I try to play WoW, that is an element that is definitely missing for me. And since I think roughly the beginning of Legion is when I haven't had a guild at all, basically. And similarly in Classic WoW, I also was never able to really find a good guild, but that is going to be a story for another video, and I'll touch on it later in this one. But with the guild thing in mind, I also have not been excited by raids lately, and I used to love running raids in like Wrath of the Lich King, for example. And with LFR specifically, looking for raid, I started to notice this mostly in Legion, a little bit Warlords of Draenor maybe, but I would basically only run raids in LFR, and since this was a giant group of random people, it felt kind of like the opposite of epically going through the content. Just thinking about LFR raiding in general, it actually makes me bored thinking about it. This again is an odd thing because I think the increased accessibility actually somehow makes the content more boring just with LFR. And I think it's because I can't really connect with any of the players that I'm actively trying to defeat epic like raid foes with. Again here, I think actually having a good guild would help, because then I can maybe do normal raids and actually interact with people and discuss with them and go through all the strategy and that type of stuff and have a lot more fun experience, I think, than just queuing up an LFR and having a bunch of random people and somehow magically getting through the content. But to do a little bit of a shift, I want to go on about allied races. And this probably bothers me more than it should, especially considering none of the allied races are actually even extremely appealing to me to begin with, at least from a surface perspective, what I can see without actually playing them. But more specifically, I don't really like that allied races are locked behind content chains, yet at the same time, I think it makes sense. So overall, I guess my opinion regarding the allied races is not really set in stone, that I think the way you unlock them is either bad or good necessarily, but the way you do unlock them, the way that is it makes it so that allied races, where the idea of unlocking allied races is not appealing to me, and that makes the allied races themselves not actually exciting to me, and even a bit frustrating, if that makes sense to you all overall. And speaking of races, this one is also really weird, but I feel like the avatar specifically for male humans keeps getting worse and worse with each update. So my oldest, longest character and most played character is a human mage, and he doesn't even feel like the same person and keeps getting uglier and uglier and less appealing to play with each update, it seems like. So whenever I think about playing him, I just think how ugly he has gotten and how downgraded his looks actually look in the game with each update. And it's not like he was very pretty to begin with, but I just can't be excited about playing this now super ugly character rather than just plain ugly. But setting that aside, more broadly with races, I think the trend in WoW with me is that a lot of the male models are super bulky and often even angry looking. And in general, I do prefer to play male characters actually, as they are more representative of me in real life here, but they're just so unappealing to look at that I end up playing 90% females. And when I was younger, this didn't really bother me much just because I like that, but I don't know why. As I have gotten older, I feel like having a character that better represents me would actually be better. And this is a struggle for me to actually try to play male characters in WoW that are more representative of me again. And that is actually why I have so many female space goats, as you see. But moving on from races, I want to go ahead and move to my last few major reasons that I am not as excited about WoW as I used to be, and here I will cover content and story. Okay, first I want to talk about the ongoing story with Shadowlands and Sylvanas and the such, and let me preface this by saying I think a lot of the cinematics and all that type of stuff is very high quality, so don't get me wrong with what I'm going on about here, and I'm not really criticizing that or even criticizing the story itself, which I am sure a lot of people love this story and have interest in it, but for me the problem is the story is just completely unappealing to begin with. And really the broad Sylvana storyline had me bored and uninterested from the start, which is not a good thing for me to actually have excitement about WoW. I could just never get into it, and at the beginning of this video I mentioned that Wrath of the Lich King, that was my favorite expansion, but even the Lich King actually having some presence in Shadowlands, at least with the start of it from what I have seen, that almost made me less interested somehow. I don't even know how to explain it, but it did. Yeah, I'm not sure really why the story with Shadowlands is pushing me away from WoW, and storyline with Sylvanas going on from Battle for Azeroth is pushing me away from WoW. And I'm not sure why, so I'll just end here saying that my taste buds don't like the flavor of the broad WoW story lately. And I think at this point it's actually good to go ahead and mention what I have actually done in Shadowlands, which as an expansion it has been out for a few months at this point, and I honestly have only gotten a few chapters into Bastion, the first main zone with Shadowlands, and I have not experienced like basically any of Shadowlands yet. It seems like I have only actually consumed a very small bit of content there, and one of the problems with the Shadowlands content is it is boring to me right now. So I actually did a WoW stream of Shadowlands questing on my mage, but about an hour in I got really bored in the middle of the stream. And just to point out, when I do a stream, usually doing the stream, one, helps me enjoy the content because I'm actually excited to share what I'm going through with it, and two, with streams I try to remain positive. Even my videos I try to remain positive, as long as that is for this one, but I really like showing how excited and how much fun I am actually having when I do videos and streams. And even with that, I felt like I was just complaining too much. I was talking about how boring this is, how unexciting the story here is, what I'm doing, the quests just weren't fun. And in the middle of the Shadowlands content stream again, I decided to actually switch characters to try to find something more fun to fill the rest of the stream with, just because I felt like the stream would have gotten way off the rails if I kept going with Shadowlands, because it was boring to me, as much as it sucks to say that. And I think what happened there really showcases why I am not excited about Shadowlands, because basically everything I have done with it has made me bored and less interested in WoW in general. And I say that knowing there is the possibility that future parts of the expansion could be very fun and exciting and actually good content that I would enjoy, but right now it's just too boring for me to get into or even get to that possibility of fun. And along those lines, with the Shadowlands content, the next thing that makes WoW not exciting for me is the forced story content. So as people that follow my channel know, I enjoy player freedom in MMOs and think it is a very crucial part to the MMO experience. And that is actually what has always helped me like WoW in the first place, and is what has made me think WoW is very good with the way your character can progress and get to like endgame or whatever they want to do. But I want to say the semi-forced story, as I will call it, started with Warlords of Draenor maybe, but especially I noticed it with Legion. Now I do want to say or point out that even if the main story is excellent and super fun and superb quality or whatever, and all that, I just very much dislike when it feels like you are required to do that for the expansion or endgame content in general. I think the content should be there, like the story content should be there, and if it is good enough for just something you want to do, something you want to experience, then you can choose to do it, and more broadly speaking, you would actually have the freedom to do it if you want, or freedom to do something else in the game within the game's actual bounds. You have the freedom to do that and go about the content to progress as you would like. And with the semi-forced story content, again, it doesn't really feel like you have that freedom to just level as you want and get to endgame as you want. But I say all of that because I do feel that way with the story content, but at the same time, I can actually see why some rewards or some particular unlocks or things, I can see why those things may require you to do, for example, the main storyline content as we're going on about for an expansion. But overall, the feel I get is, I guess with the, again, semi-forced story content, is that it's a feature of the game that makes me less excited about playing the game overall, just knowing it's there and it feels forced, at least to me. And that is actually the last topic I have for why I'm not excited about WoW anymore. And to begin the discussion on what I am actually excited with WoW and some things I do like about the game, let's actually continue with the forced story content, as odd as that is. And there is this amazing Shadowlands feature that I personally have not gotten to experience yet, but it is that your alts don't have to do the story content if you did it on your main, and I think that is a wonderful system, and I fully do support that idea. This comes, again, from somebody who enjoys playing tons of alts, and I think having the freedom on them to do world quests or instances and whatever you want and all that sort of stuff to level sounds very appealing to me compared to like replaying the same pre-carved path content and storyline over and over on each alt. So with all these other hurdles that I've gone on about with this video, that would be a feature that I would love to take part of if I was able to actually get into Shadowlands and get my characters going with that. But the next big thing I have here is the level squish, and I actually do have plans to start a brand new shaman, and I'm thinking I will level through the Wrath of the Lich King content actually, but with the level squish, I really like that you can choose basically which era of WoW you want to quest and level through to get your character progressed. And for me, I think I am in the minority of the general player base, and that my favorite questing areas in modern WoW are Outland and Northrend, Outland with the Burning Crusade and Northrend with Wrath of the Lich King, that is, and I much prefer that older open style of questing, I want to call it, that those expansions followed. And I think they kind of progressed from the Azeroth and Vanilla WoW, which I also enjoyed, but they progressed from it as in they had the same open style, but I think even improved upon it. But setting that aside, just in general, I am excited to start this new shaman, and perhaps I think that can actually spark some broader excitement for me with WoW in general. There are a lot of areas that I'd actually like to level fresh characters through, like Mist of Pandaria, try that again. I already mentioned Wrath of the Lich King would like that. Even some of the vanilla or Cataclysm, I guess zones they're called now, I would also like to test all those out and see what they have to offer nowadays. But yeah, just in general, I am looking forward to leveling that new shaman. And then one other thing that excites me is the Dungeon Finder, and especially with the leveling squish, the ability to run so many different instances on leveling characters to get like this super broad experience, and at the same time you get good leveling experience and good gear progress. With the Dungeon Finder, I think it is a good thing and something I'd be excited and happy to participate in on my characters, but this is in sharp contrast to Lotro, which doesn't have a feature like that, and is a feature I do love in WoW and would definitely look forward to potentially using on any future alts I have. Alright, I don't know if y'all can actually tell in the video, but this is actually making me quite excited about WoW and potentially playing it again with the low level alts, and even with all the stuff from the main chunk of the video that I've been talking about. But let's go ahead and get to the last major thing that does excite me with WoW, and that is Burning Crusade Classic. So I have not talked about Classic WoW basically at all with this video, so Classic WoW was fun for me and I got my fill with it, but one thing missing in my experience with Classic WoW was also not having a good guild in that. I did have a guild for a while, but there were many problems then, and I think they heavily followed this optimization over fun policy that so many people who played Classic WoW seemed to took to, and I think that ultimately caused the guild to disband eventually. But setting that drama aside, I am actually surprisingly very excited about Burning Crusade Classic and plan to do a fresh start shaman there as well. And hopefully with that I can find a guild that prioritizes actually like fun and community and is more casual overall than my old guild that disbanded in Classic WoW. But I am actually going to be working a few connections on that to try to get a guild going, but we'll set that aside for later. And I think just in general, until we know more about Burning Crusade Classic and until it really releases actually, I just will remain excited and waiting for it at the moment. And I might even actually make a whole video on that topic because there's a lot of things there that would be too much and not really fit into this one. But that is finally all I have for this video. In summary, there's a lot of stuff that holds WoW back for me, unfortunately, in my opinion, and it keeps it from just being exciting to me, even though there are definitely some good qualities and features in the game that I really do like. So, going forward, I plan to refocus my WoW time on leveling a fresh shaman again and potentially even revisiting Classic WoW as it is now. And as far as this video goes, I hope you all enjoyed it and learned something useful about World of Warcraft in 2021. And again, my channel mostly focuses on the Lord of the Rings Online, so this is a bit odd, but if you want to see more content on WoW like this, please do let me know. And if you have any thoughts about any of the topics I brought up here, or just general thoughts on WoW, please do share as well below, because I'm always excited to read that type of stuff. But if you did enjoy this video, please consider sharing, liking, and subscribing for more, or consider becoming a channel member to support the content, and thanks for watching everyone.